right, I'm George Hoyvik, and this is my wife, LeBon, and we're both students here at TCC. We have been taking sculpture classes for more than 10 years here, and we really enjoy it. And so what I'm going to be doing is going through the process of doing a bronze piece. And I have a piece here that I've entered, and this is a bronze. And this piece here is, you can see underneath here, it's this space in here. Now, if this was poured solid, it'd be very heavy. It's heavy now, but by doing this, it makes it lighter, and it doesn't cost as much. I want to thank Jennifer for inviting us here today. And I'll start with the process of pouring bronze. And there's two different ways. One is the direct method, and one is the indirect method. And the direct method is you begin with wax, and this is a piece of wax. And you can make sheets of wax. You pour it into a cookie sheet and let it dry, and then you take it out and you can get a good piece of wax this thick. And when it's that thick, you can bend it around, and like it shows there on the dogs, that's how you get an open space in the open there. I'll pass this piece around. It comes in big chunks when you buy it, and you cut it off and you melt it, and then you can pour different pieces. Yeah, you have a question?
What they call lost wax method?
This, I'm talking about the lost wax method, right. So you can just kind of pass that around. And the direct method is that you make the piece out of wax. And once you've made it out of wax, you've got to sprue it. Now there's some pieces here that I have that you can purchase, and all this you have in the class, you know, when you're taking the class here. And these are different pieces, the way the wax comes for sprueing. And what you do when you sprue a piece of, I've got a piece here, but say if this was made out of wax, and you put it like this, and then you put this cup, you connect it to the top here. So you have the piece with that cup, and then what you have to do, you have to put some more sprues on it to release the air, because when you pour it, it's going to be poured into the cup. The liquid bronze is going to come down this way and then just go up, and it's got to be able to push the air out so it doesn't stop the flow. So you use these types of sprues, and you hook them to different places, and you bring it up to the cup.
So it's like an exhaust valve.
It's like an exhaust valve, right. So if you have any questions while I'm speaking, just raise your hand.
Sorry, George.
That's fine, just raise your hand. So once you've sprued all this up, then you're ready to put on a shell. And it's all sprued, and then at the class, the instructor has a big vase, and he has a ceramic shell it's liquid, a liquid form. And you take your piece and you dip it in the shell all the way up to the part of the cup, and you pull it out and you let it dry for overnight. Then the next day you come in, you dip it again when it's dry, and you pull it up, and then there are some little nuggets that they have. It's ceramic shell pieces. It's kind of like granules of sand, and they have fine, medium, and coarse. And the first time you put it in the fine, and you sprinkle fine all over it, and you let it dry for two days or a day, and then you come in the next day and you switch to medium, and you do 7 dips. And there's 2 mediums, 2 courses, and the final dip. So there you have it all. You have a shell around all your wax. Here's a shell. So that shell, when it comes time to do your pour, they take the shell that you have, they put it in a little heating box, fire box, and it burns the wax out of the shell. It just disappears, and that's how it's lost wax. So you don't see any wax remained after you take it out of there. It's just gone.
Vaporized.
Yeah, it just vaporizes it. So then you've got this shell around the piece, and then you take that, and it's time for the pour. And so they have a foundry here at TCC to do the pour, and the class helps in the pour. And what they do is they take the bronze and they put it in a big crucible and they melt it. And it melts at about around 2,000 degrees and it becomes liquid. So then you take the crucible over and you pour it in the cup. It goes into the cup and the air comes out, and then you wait, probably an hour to let it cool, and then you take it over and you just hit it with a hammer and it breaks off the shell. So there you got a piece like this, and it's bronze. This is all bronze. All your sprues are bronze and your piece is bronze. So then the work comes. You got to remove all the sprues from your piece. And we have, at the TCC, they have some cutting wheels, hand cutting wheels, and you cut it off here and cut it off there. And all this is excess. So you put that back in the bucket, because the next pour, they're going to melt that. So then you have a piece like this. And you just cut it all off. And once you've done that, then you can polish this piece with a wire brush, and then you can patina it. This piece is not patinaed. This is a solid piece, it's not patinaed. And I'll just pass it around, you can take a look at it. Anybody have any questions at this point? Yeah, go ahead.
The red, what did you call the red piece that you put the...
Right.
What is that called again?
This is just wax. There's sprues, and they're different sizes. Some pieces are bigger, so you got to use bigger sprues.
You actually dip that piece...
The whole thing goes in there.
And it doesn't melt or break down?
No, it's just dipped in the slurry. It's a slurry which makes the coating for the... Okay. And you can buy, they have all kinds of different sizes of wax. So these are some of them, they're all different sizes. And it's all available in the class. So everything is available there. The cost of bronze is quite expensive. But by doing it at school, all you do is pay for the materials. And what happens is, the first time you sprue it, you weigh it, so you just weigh the wax, and you record it in the book by the scale. And so there's a charge for that. So then after you dipped it in the slurry, and you have the shell around it, then you weigh it again, and that'll give you the weight. You subtract the wax from that, and it gives you the weight of the slurry. So you pay for a slurry. And then the last thing is, when you get all done with your piece, then you weigh it with all the sprues cut off, because you donated those back to the class, and that's what you pay for.
Is bronze very expensive?
Yeah, it's like, was like $5 a pound?
So the actual
cost of material on your little bird there would be, what, $8, $10, something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably a little less than that.
Cost of the
Just
final material,
the final
not
material.
not the investment
No,
or the...
yeah, the final, this would probably cost about $6 or $7.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And did you, was this made in your first class?
Well, this was made in one of my classes. I don't remember when. But there's one other thing that I didn't do in this is I should have put a piece like this on here. So then I would thread that, and when I mount it on a base, I can just screw it down. But in the class, there's some equipment where they can attach, like you take a bolt and cut the bolt off, and you can weld it on there, and then you
Is
screw
that
it.
one welded on that's on there now?
No, that was original.
Part
Yeah.
of your-
And I put that on because if you have one here and you put it on the base, you drill a little hole and drop that in the hole so it won't turn.
Oh,
See?
Gorilla Glue, good.
Now, my wife and I, we started taking the class here at TCC, and like I say, it was a number of years ago, and we continued to take it. We have done a couple of public pieces, and I was talking to her earlier about, there's one on Bridgeport Way, and it's between University Place and Lakewood. There's a bridge. You go past Fred Meyer's, and before you start up the hill, you cross the bridge, and there's a big beam that's on the bridge that has salmon. And the salmon are about this. Yeah, my wife and I did that piece.
Very cool.
Yeah,
To Lakewood. area.
To Lakewood.
Yeah. You go past Fred Meyer, and then before you get to Walmart. It's off on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, excuse me.
yeah, you have another question?
Yeah, I was wondering.
Oh, it's on the bridge.
It's right on the...
Why the fish on the bridge?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
I was just curious, in the sculpture class that you took, is it strictly all bronze sculpture, or you did multiple, different media?
Well, you can use different media. I've used stone, and I've used wood. I took a wood carving class one quarter. But the difference now is when you do stone and wood, once you carve the piece off, you can't add it back. But in bronze, with wax, you can take off and add, and so you end up. So that makes it a little easier than when you're carving stone and you make a mistake. Well, you got to just make it smaller. So anyway, we have, like I say, we did 3 pieces that are public pieces, and one is in Gig Harbor at their Civic Center, which is their city hall, and it's it's 6 feet in diameter, and it's fish, and it's placed in the concrete, so you can walk over it.
Was this in the foyer of the
It's outside. It's outside the building, just before you enter the building.
I'll have
It's
to
in the plaza there.
go see it.
Yeah, you're Gig Harbor, right? And then we did one up in northeast Tacoma, which is at the substation, the police substation, and it's an Indian princess, and she's about 4 feet tall, sitting on a big rock. And we worked with the Puyallup Indian tribe to get the proper dress for her and the drum. And it was kind of interesting. They first told us that the women didn't drum. So then next day she called back and she says, they did drum. And they told us what kind of drum they use. So we have that Indian maiden sitting up there with a drum.
And that's also a bronze piece?
It's also a bronze piece.
That's-
Now, one thing about here at TCC, when you take the class and you can do a piece, you're limited to the size of a small loaf of bread. So, but if you go do a public piece, you know, you're going to make a lot bigger piece, so you have to use a commercial foundry. And there is a commercial foundry in Tacoma. It's called Two Ravens, right. Two Ravens. But bronze is very expensive. If you do a piece, probably, you did a statue of me, you'd probably do, at least pay $15,000 to $20,000 to have it poured and done. So that's a direct method of I told you about, just starting with wax and making your piece out of wax. The indirect method is you start with clay, and you make a piece out of clay, and then once you've made that piece, then you put a cast around it of plaster, and you make pieces so you can take it apart easy. And then you take that and you heat up the wax and you pour it in the bottom to fill it up, your casting, and then when you wait about, I would say 2 minutes, and the wax starts to dry inside, and it makes a coat like that on the edges, and then you pour out the rest, and then you take it out of there, and you have a wax piece. And that's from just starting. And when you do it that way, you have a cast, so you can make many pieces of the same thing. But when you do just start with wax, you can only make one piece, because it's lost after. So.
Is it called clay casting?
I don't know the name of that. It's just, you just make this plaster cast. And Levon will show you some clay that she's going to talk about, clay that she uses. So anybody have any other questions?
Last question.
Yeah.
As far as the kind of sculptures that you prefer doing, you know, the direct or indirect method, is there one that you find?
Yeah, I do the direct method. I haven't really done the indirect method where I made a cast, because I just want one piece. I don't want to be commercial and start selling my pieces. So I just make one piece. And we've enjoyed doing the class because it's a lot of fun, you know, and it's a good hobby. It's one of our hobbies. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a little piece of clay in here. That's the reason I'm holding this. I thought not everyone had perhaps seen paper clay before. My name's Yvonne Hoyvik, and I'm a sculptor, and I've started here at TCC, and I love taking classes here and getting to know all the people. It's just been a real joy. This is paper clay, and people that have worked with clay probably for centuries have modified it. I don't know whether they're trying to save money or they just like to play with the clay and add things to it, but twigs and all kinds of things have been added through the centuries, and this happens to be paper. And what paper does, it could be up to 20% paper in there. What paper does, it makes it stronger, and it's stronger in the greenware. Greenware meaning that it's clay that has dried but not been fired. And if you pull it apart, you can see the little feathery pieces of paper that are in there. Let me throw this away. Oh, thank you. For me, it does a lot of things. It makes it a lot stronger when I'm working with it. And you just have to learn to work with, working with clay. These pieces are all sort of experimental. What I was doing was trying to figure out how I could construct something that would work in my kiln. My kiln is about 24 inches high on the inside. So I was trying to figure out how I could get things to go higher than that, and I have done it. But these are sort of the prototypes of how I could do it. There's a joint in here, and it's a very simple joint. It's just this comes up and it makes the lip and then supports it, and then it comes right back over that. Now I was also working trying to figure out how I could support it on the inside to make sort of a engineering skeleton inside that would support a bigger piece. I never have figured that out. I have huge pieces that I've done at home. I have 4-foot alligator, and he's about this big around, and that is totally hollow. There's no walls in there. And I keep thinking, there should be a wall in there, but it's been sitting outside in my yard for about 5 years. So I guess it doesn't need a wall, unless a branch falls on it or something, but kind of amazing. So clay is really kind of amazing. I do use a slab roller, which means I roll it out flat, and then I put it around a cylinder, and you can almost see the what shape of cylinder that I've used. I do the head, usually the last thing I do. Now, when these are some early pieces, and I have a cat, so I have a model, which is very helpful. And this cat happens to be able to do this little peculiar thing like this with her paws. And when she walks like this. She doesn't walk with her feet straight forward, she walks like this. Very strange. The anatomy is a little strange on her. I like working with clay. It's much more immediate for me. I don't have to worry about waiting for the time when they're going to fire the kiln, or even when they're going to fire the bronze, or even when they're going to put the slurry out. So this is much more immediate. I can do it. I can get a piece done in probably 2 weeks. Whereas with bronze, you're looking at 2 months at the very smallest amount of time usually. So, and when I'm doing pieces, I find that I have this thing that I just can't leave the surface alone. There's something else there that needs to be there. And so I keep adding things. And so this one is just a fun thing. I just added some mice that are making a little gymnasts out of the mice here on the cats. And she just has a simple ribbon. The things I've been doing lately are coyotes, and coyotes have an identity with the Native Americans. And so I've gone and found petroglyphs from the Native Americans, and the locals did have there's a lot of petroglyphs around here that are local. And so I've adapted those, and I've made the coyotes much more realistic looking in their coloring. They're not realistic. I mean, there's no way that you would ever say that's even resembling a coyote, just like these really don't resemble a cat. They're not perfectly cat-like. But the coyote, then I used silver. And the silver, when you fire this, I have an underglaze. So first of all, I fire it to a bisque fire. Then I can put the underglaze, which is the mice, put that on there. And then I put an overglaze over it at the same time, and that gives me the shiny surface. That goes up to about 2,300 degrees. When I'm doing with the silver, because it will disappear at that temperature, you then fire it at a lower temperature, and I'm not even sure what it is. I think it's like 1,800 degrees. Otherwise, the silver would burn off. So there's few interesting things, so many things that you kind of learn how to work with clay, and it's always fun to experiment too. And when I started working with clay, I swore that there were so many beautiful clays that I would never, ever glaze. Never say never. I don't know how many different colors of glazes now. Are there any questions about these pieces, about how I can, yes, Denise?
So you mentioned silver?
Yes.
It's like a silver in the glaze, just a certain percentage of it, or?
I painted on with, it's a liquid, and I painted on with a brush. And I bought it at Clay Art, and the last joint of my little finger, that's about the size of the little vial I bought with $32 or $35 worth. But I only have to apply it once. These mice I have to put on 3 times. I have to paint the mice 3 times. And I don't often get the same mouse. The first time I paint the mouse, it doesn't always look the same as the last time I paint the mouse. Things get a little heavier, like the legs and the tail can get heavier, or something will change about it. But with the silver, it is the first time you just put 1 coat on, and it's really effective. And it goes forever and ever. I'm amazed at how far it goes. Yeah.
Is that bottom piece hollow, like a cookie jar?
This one?
No, the bottom. Of
Yeah.
The cookie piece.
Yeah.
Is it like, you could have like 2 cookie jars in?
Sure.
Oh, that was.
And then this one. Yeah. They all have a wall to them. Now, Jennifer, how did you have these arranged?
Now you've done it.
Yes, I did it, didn't I? Yes.
So have you always worked sculpturally, or when you started working with clay, did you start working like doing bowls and pots and stuff, or have you always done?
No, I've never thrown a bowl.
Okay, good for you.
Never thrown.
That's the hard part.
Yeah. So I've always worked sculpturally with it. And the first pieces I did were, I did the whole piece. I just took a block of clay and then just worked on the outside of it and got a whole piece, and then I hollowed it out.
Oh, yeah.
But you always have to end up with a wall. Like you look at a cup, there's a wall on that cup. You always have to have that. It has to be hollow, it has to have space, and it has to have a way for the gas to escape too. That's the reason there's a little hole in the bottom of it.
Show your latest little
These I've been,
things you've been doing.
yeah, I'll just take it off. I have a rather large kiln, so there's always space when I do larger things. There's always space for extra stuff. So this is,
I love these.
This one's fired also.
this is fired also. This is a different clay. This is porcelain. So it's porcelain clay.
Oh, that's cute.
And she's got those, I have one. I actually have 3, I think. But she's got these in the little gallery
Yeah, in the
shop
shop.
there. I love the way they move, and
Yeah.
I hadn't seen the Dalmatian.
I know it. The only reason I wear that a lot is because it lost its tail. For some reason, I took it out of the kiln, and there was its tail just laying there. Yeah. Now, this actually is an adaptation of a little toy that was made in about the early 1900s, and kids would have had this toy. And the legs moved on the toy too, and it can stand. Oh, let me get here. I don't want to use somebody else's. It can stand. Whoops. Or sit.
Well, you got the cord on.
I got the cord out. Here we go.
They do.
Yeah, they do stand, they do sit, and they do this little thing too. There we go.
They're just so cute.
Yeah.
So is there a reason why you would choose to do those figurines in porcelain, or do you sometimes do it in other kinds of clay? Is there
Well, I thought that the clay needed to be maybe a little stronger than regular clay. That's the reason I went to the porcelain. And the porcelain then gives me gives another texture. There's kind of a little bit of a translucency there that I like. I like that texture and the contrast with the opaque black spots. So.
But I take it porcelain is a higher grade of clay? Is it like more expensive? Is it...
It's a little more expensive. It's just a finer sand, I think, that they use because it's very fine. It's almost like silk when you're working with it. Yeah. And a lot of people do not like to work with it as far as throwing bowls with it, but other people think it's not a problem. So it's everyone has their own like and dislike as far as the clay or type of clay that they're using. Yeah.
And don't you think a lot of the clay choice has to do, I think, with aesthetics, just what you like and what you don't like, but I think it also has to do with what any particular clay's properties are. Like you chose the paper clay because it's very good sculpturally, it's strong and relatively lightweight because the paper actually burns out when you fire it.
It does. It burns out between 400 and 800 degrees, and it stinks like you really should not be in the room, so you really need a good ventilation system, which I happen to have. My kiln has a vent on it and then a pipe that takes that out, but it's a horrific smell.
Yeah, I've never smelled paper clay fired. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So what I do is I know that it's going to do that, so when I put it in the kiln, I turn on my fan, and then I wait till about 4 hours, because I know that's just about when it's going to get up to 800 degrees.
Yeah.
And then I just turn it off, but I don't do anything in the studio at all. No, I wait. I have the windows open and wait to get it ventilated.
Huh.
Yeah. Have you ever gone by sawmills that were working?
Yeah.
that's the same odor. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
kind of
is that
sulfury.
paper- Is that pulp?
Yeah, that's
smell?
sulfury
Yeah.
smell. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. Anything else? Any questions? Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. And George?
I just want to add one thing about bronze. Once you get the piece of bronze all poured, there's a process called patina, and you can use make it different colors.
Yeah.
And that's easy to just spray it on.
It's not like a paint, it is a chemical, and they use different chemicals to make different colors on the bronze, and bronze is like 93% copper. And so the chemical is reacting with that copper. And you get all kinds of colors. They've been experimenting lately with them, and some of them look like marble almost. They have that green marbleized look or the gray marbleized look. They're some really special finishes that bronze is now that they're working with.
Are you gonna mess with any of those colored finishes on your stuff? Have you thought about it?
No, at the school, we usually only have like 2 different colors.
Uh-huh.
Those are the colors
Oh, okay.
and they're more bronze.
Yeah, more traditional bronze, and they're safer. They're the safer chemicals.
Oh, okay. Safety has a lot to do with
Absolutely. With
any
what,
of the art materials that we use. I don't think people realize how toxic a lot of this stuff was. And like when we all went to school, toxic was a word that kind of didn't exist.
that's right.
And now institutions are really conscious of what's safe and what isn't.
Yeah. Anything else? Well, I've enjoyed having you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.